the sort of main genres that keep coming up over and over again that we can all sort of commit to as creative people, there's action, there's adventure, there's comedy, drama, family, horror, mystery, romance, thriller, fantasy. And fantasy can also be a world, right? But just in terms of sort of like a thing that describes it, that seems to be what everybody uses to sum stuff up, right? However, it gets a little crazy pretty quickly because suddenly you get into all these like subcategories, right? And then you start combining two and all this stuff. So we'll talk more specifically about thriller in a second, but for example, like under the banner of mystery, you've got a crime movie, but you could also have a whodunit, which is very different. Yet they're still going to operate first and foremost under the premise of mystery. And then there's going to be some like nuances that make it a whodunit versus a crime movie. Or for example, in thrillers, as I'm sure you already know, there's a ton of subsets within thriller, right? You've got the psychological thriller, you've got the legal thriller, you've got the spy thriller, you've got the domestic thriller. So as long as you, as a creative person, know the basic tenets of thriller or of action, you can then start sprinkling in the additional little layers, like, oh, but in a legal thriller, these are the things that happen. Or, oh, in a psychological thriller, these are the things that happen. And again, I'll get more specific later, but you have to sort of commit to the big overarching umbrella of what you're doing first, to then go, oh, now I can get more detailed and more precise with what I actually need to include in my story so that I can turn around and tell people that's what I've got when I'm trying to sell it and when I'm trying to identify with my audience, right? But what's very strange in this whole thing is there's a difference between what I would say is a subgenre, which is something like, okay, within thrillers, you've got a psychological thriller or a medical thriller or a spy thriller. That's different than combining two, like a romantic comedy or an action adventure or a coming-of-age drama. So we'll also try to talk a little bit about all that because that is, again, a little bit more tricky high math to take two types of movies and two sets of expectations and make them all work within the context of basic story structure. All your job is to basically give people surprises within the context of the foundation, the boundaries. Give them the little surprises, keep the big ones where they are. It's the engineering we were talking about yesterday. If you can give in to the engineering, you can paint the living room walls whatever color you want. And last, when I run into writers who are sort of scared of this, I just remind them that if they aren't following all of that good stuff, sort of what's the point then of claiming you're writing that type of movie? If you're saying like, well, I'm going to write a horror movie, but I don't want to do this, and I don't really want to do that, and I don't really like horror movies that include this, I'm like, well, what's the point of writing a horror movie then? Don't do it. Like if you're going out for Japanese food, but you don't eat soy sauce, you don't want any of this, and you don't, you're no carbs, so no rice, like why go? I don't get that. Like, give in, have fun, play in that sandbox for a while. That's what everyone else in the sandbox is doing. There is tons of information out there where you can Google any movie and find an entire universe of people devoted to complaining about it or raving about it. So it's your obligation to take 5 seconds, look online to see, again, what the critical successes and failures were in whatever sort of genre type you want to work in. And that includes box office, by the way. And then taking that information, go find those fan sites and hear what they loved about it, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. It's very easy to figure out how to deliver exactly on the expectations with then your 15% new stuff just by reading some of those sites.